is the rotating double knit loom from KB Looms. The kit comes with everything shown here. This is the topper I will be using. Now this topper does not come with this set. The project can be made on the round one. There'll be a pretty good size difference in it though. I am marking every 2 pegs. So here is where it starts at. I put this one with a different color rubber band just as more of a visual aid that, hey, I'm at a new row. I need to click my clicker, hit my row counter, and keep going. So I'm marking 2, 2 open, mark 2, 2 open. Okay, here's where I was at. So mark 2, 2 open, so I need to mark these 2. So I put them on, and then I push that down to the bottom. So go ahead and make a slip knot. I am putting the slip knot on a back peg and putting the string back there just so that it's out of the way. Now the cast on that I'm going to be using is called a double E-wrap cast on. Kind of pull that down, which means you E-wrap the peg one time, you E-wrap it a second time, you take that bottom loop over top the top one. What I prefer to do is I catch that first one with my tool. Makes it a lot faster. We'll work a couple away from this row counter. Make it a little easier for you to see. Okay, here. You can just wrap it twice. Take the bottom over, or I like to wrap it and catch it, and that makes it a lot faster. Do that all the way around just this outside loom until you get back to your last peg. We got our cast on done. This is the last peg we wrapped. So now, zoom this in a bit. That goes behind. We're on this peg. We are doing a rib stitch. It's going to be knit 2, purl 2. And my marked pegs, see how they're pink? That's so I can remember pink equals purl, PP. So pink equals purl. That one just helps remind me where my starting point is. Instead of doing a true knit stitch or an E-wrap stitch, I'm going to do a flat stitch. You can do a U-stitch if you prefer. So here's my purl ones. Purl, so hoop down, oops. You pull that loop up through the bottom, stitch off the peg, put the new one on. These two, if you use stitch, that's all you're doing. It just makes the stitch a little looser. You pull it behind. But I honestly don't notice a huge difference between a flat stitch and a U-stitch, so I typically just go with a flat stitch because it's a little faster. So there's your purl, and I'll show you with these ones on flat stitch. Flat stitch, you just hold it and go. Alright, so flat stitch 2, purl 2, flat stitch 2, purl 2. You do that all the way around, and you keep working until you have 15 rows of that done. Just every time you get back to this peg, you click your row counter if you're using one. If not, you can try to count it by looking at it, but when you have the double knit looms, it makes it a little more difficult. At any point during those first 15 rows, You can pop that off there and then just kind of tuck it down to where it'll come. You can grab string. There. That way it's kind of out of the way. We have our 15 rows. Now is where you're going to be using your tensioner. What we're going to do, zoom in here so you can see a little better. We are going to be double knitting, which is where we use this side and this side. And we will be doing what is called a rib stitch. So you wrap around 2 on the back side. Your yarn is coming from this peg, so you go straight over and straight across. So you got those 2 wrapped. You come down here and you wrap these 2. Go up there. See? Get my yarn out of the way here. See how it's kind of, if you're using a straw, you can pinch that so that it goes through a lot easier. I'll do just a couple more, then I will finish out the row. See how it's going? You do all the way around to your beginning. There is your first row. I'll zoom out of it so you can see a little better. That is your first row of your double knitting. So you go ahead, put you on row 15, or at this point if you want you can restart counting. Right now, the inside will only have 1 loop on every peg. The outside will have 2. So on this outside edge, you will knit off. You will take these bottom stitches over the top. You do that all the way around the loom. Your 3 rows of double knit rib stitch are done. Now we are going to be reversing this stitch, also known as inverting it. Just for a visual aid and to help, I went over the part of the previous row with a darker collar so you can see exactly where those stitches are. They're a little harder to see over here. I just don't want anybody to get confused. I want you to be able to see exactly where those stitches are. So, before, we're going to pretend, here's our yellow. This is our working yarn. It's coming from this peg. So I added a blue because it's a dark collar, and you will be able to see the difference very well. Before, you went from your working peg to the peg right across, and you can actually see there's an arrow there. So that was kind of a way to remember. So you went up, over, down, over, up, over, down, over, and you just repeated that all the way around for 3 rows. This time we're going to do over, up, over, down. So we are doing the opposite of what is there. So we're E-wrapping this one. Those 2 aren't connected. We are E-wrapping it, and then we're going down, over, up, over, down, over, up. Do a couple more so you can see. Hopefully this is a good visual to help you see the difference. And as you can see, they're not all exactly the same, and that is perfectly fine. They'll be stretched out a little here and there. You will not notice that in the finished product at all. So you use your yellow yarn. This is the working yarn. and you invert and do what I did. You go over, up, over, down instead of up, over, down, over. I hope that helps. Go ahead and do 3 rows. All right, you're starting to be able to see it coming down. This is when I get really excited because I can start seeing the design really showing up in the project. The next 3 rows are going to be another set of inverted rows, and then that'll be it for yellow. Then we'll be moving on to the orange. But the last time we went over 1, up 1, over 1, down 1, and we kept doing that. Kind of hold it up close so hopefully you can kind of see over, up, over, over. So this time we're going back to the original way we wrapped it, which is going straight up to that arrow, around 1, over, down, over 1, up, over 1, down, over 1. You do that all the way around. Do 3 rows. You can cut your working yarn at that point. Leave a tail about 4 or 5 inches long. We are done with our yellow. Look at that. Now we want to put this end in there so it's not, you don't really see it. You can just lay it over top and then just start your new collar. What I like to do is kind of hook it in a little extra, so that extra yarn I just wrap the same direction I was wrapping before. Just make sure I get over a few pegs, and I have a little bit of a tail. You can see these ones I didn't knit off yet, so you'll have the 2 at the top of them, 1 at the bottom, and you will just knit those off. Of course, you do the outside and you got to do the inside, and then we will start with our new collar. The yellow is done. Time for our orange, which again, this is what I'm using. Any orange will work. I like this one. It's more of a burnt orange, good fall color. But I've got the end and I've got my tensioner on it. Yarn guide, tensioner, whatever you want to call it if you're using one. Create a little bit of a slip knot here. And this is the peg we start on, so I'm just going to go the peg before it. Just kind of tighten that on there. Doesn't have to be too tight. Now, we are inverting this row, which means we're doing the opposite. Every 3 rows, you're going to switch. So this one, it went from here, over, down, over, up, over. You can tell because there's a space right here between those 2. So this time we will get this one. This is our starting peg. We will go over, go up, go over, go down, go over. And if at any time you get confused, just look. If there's a gap there, you're supposed to be going and connecting that spot. So we got our yarn hooked here. We go up. See, we are doing the exact same thing we've been doing. We're just bringing in a new collar now. See where that gap was? Now there's a string going between them. You'll do that all the way around to your beginning. You can take this string and weave it in later. Honestly, what I like to do is I will go backwards and wrap the pattern, just kind of like I did with the yellow, and keep a little bit tucked so that that little end will be woven, and then I will go right over those to get back to my first peg. Couple stitches from the beginning. So we got 2 there. We bring 1 over, up. See, we're going right over top of these ones until we get back to our black one. As you can see, the tail's woven in there. If these little tails start to stick out at any point, all you got to do is trim them off, because you are locked into a bunch of pegs and you're not going to have one big bulky spot, because the extra end of the yarn is woven in on this side, and for the yellow it's woven in on that side. That would actually be row 25. At this point, you will knit off, take those bottom loops over the top, inside and outside, and then you'll do 2 more rows like this. Every 3 rows you invert. So you will be doing 9 rows, just like you did for your yellow for the rib spot. 3 rows, invert, 3 rows, invert, 3 rows, invert. Go ahead and get that done, and then we'll be switching to our white. At this point, we will be removing all the stitches from the inside loom, placing them on the outside loom. There will be 2 stitches on every peg on the outside, and the inside loom will be completely empty. So I will go ahead and show you a couple. If it's really tight, you can untwist the stitch if you need to. Some people tend to knit tighter than others, or you can just place it on there. That was a little tight. Now the second one will be looser. You go all the way around the loom. Go all the way around the loom. Take those bottom loops off the top. They will only be on this outside loom. And go all the way around until every peg on this outside loom only has 1 stitch left. Then do 2 rows of E-wrap. You take your cast off string and just pull it through. So we have that first tail. I pulled it through actually the same stitch as that very last stitch. What makes this different than the regular pull string cast off is we are putting the loop through, we are pulling the yarn through every other peg. So this peg, the yarn goes behind it and it's being skipped, and then we pull the next one through. First few stitches, just kind of keep an eye on your tail so you don't pull that out. Got it through that one, so we will skip and pull the, you can pull the yarn up through, you can pull it down through, whatever is easier for you to do. But you do this skipping every other peg all the way around the loom. This is where you should be, and you have an empty one and you have one that was already done. Go ahead and pick up this empty one right here. Go behind the next one. It's already been done. This one hasn't, so you will pick it up. Go all the way around the loom doing this, and then you can actually, this is what it should look like. Go ahead and knit off. You're taking every single loop, every single stitch off all the pegs. See, there was the last one I did. And then you pull it up through to tighten up this top. This was my original strand of yarn I was using. This one is way too long now. I don't need that, so I'll cut the end off. And you should have these 2 strands. Just slowly start pulling them. I keep my finger in the middle. What is happening is you went around it twice, so you actually have basically 2 sets tightening up at the same time. So you want to be careful that you get them together right, or else you'll end up with a big hole like that. And now I've almost got it all the way closed up. I want to pull the yarn through the hole, so I will finish tying it off on the inside. Again, put that yarn over to the edge, and you just keep tightening them up. This is why you want to use a stronger yarn for your bind off. If you're using more of like an artisan yarn, something that is soft and fluffy and fuzzy, I just use Care on Simply Soft. That tends to be a yarn that I really don't have a lot of issues with. Once you feel that you've got it, you feel like you've got it as tight as you can, before you tie it off, double check. Okay, I can do a little tighter. See, all closed up. Go ahead and tie it in a very secure knot. I go ahead and tie in my end over here as well. You can tie these off any way that you would like, but once you got those kind of tied off and secured, you can cut the strings down to just a couple inches and then take a crochet hook and weave those ends in. One thing left to do, and I want to put a pom-pom on the top. You can use just white if you wanted. That would be really cute. I think I'm going to try all 3 colors together. There are so many ways you can make pom-poms. Lots of videos, lots of techniques. I have some of these, so this is what I use. The concept for most of them, basically the same. I've seen people make them with forks. Just hold the yarn and you just keep wrapping it around. Wrap it as full as you can. The more you wrap it, the fluffier the ball will be. And then cut those. Push it in that side. That will keep it from coming apart. You can go over to the other side now. One thing that's cute you can do is you can do one side of your ball one color and then do the other side a different color. Now if this is hanging out pretty far, that's fine. You will trim up the pom-pom when you're done. Close it. Now want to make sure your scissors are sharp. One thing you can do is you can put the ends over that. I already done the one side, so you just hold the scissors and cut through. I'll go ahead and show you this side. See, even with sharp scissors, I've made it so thick that it takes a little bit of work to cut through it. There we go. See, all of that is being held together in there. Go ahead and grab a piece of your scrap yarn that was pretty strong, like what we used for the cast off on the hat. What you will do is it goes all the way around that. You want the string to be long enough because this is what we'll be attaching to the hat. You want to make sure, get the string really, really, really tight. and then tie a knot. And I try to pull it as tight as I can without breaking the string. I actually do a couple knots. It seems each time it helps make it even tighter. Alright, so when you think you've got it tied off enough, this is the awesome and scary part. Go ahead and lift one side, and you can lift the other. This comes apart, and there is your pom pom. This is the string to attach it with. Now you can, little strands that are hanging out a little long, you can trim off and kind of shape it if you would like to. That is, of course, completely optional. Now that this is here, I'm going to take my crochet hook right through there and grab those strings, pull them right through the top. Flip this inside out. This you want on there as tight as you can get it, or else it'll get really loose and floppy. I still have these strings from the cast on and that extra string, so I'm going to use those to anchor the pom pom down. Tighten it up as much as I can, flip it over. Okay. And then I'll do another knot just to make sure. I'm not going to cut the strings all the way down, because I'll take a crochet hook and still weave those in just a little bit so that they are out of the way. Here is our finished candy corn inspired hat. I hope everybody enjoyed this video. Questions, comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, turn those notifications on. Thank you guys so much for watching my video.